They closed La Rumorosa just behind me. The road was freezing over. I drove down that road along the mountainside, between deep ravines filled with rocks. Deadly ones. Suddenly I saw someone walking dangerously close to the road. A woman. Even though I don't like picking up strangers, and even though it was nighttime, it was far too cold. But when I stopped beside her to see if she needed help, I noticed there was something very strange about her. Today we return to the most mysterious road in Mexico. Beyond how dangerous it is, beyond the accidents that keep happening, beyond the ravines that become junkyards of twisted metal, beyond the legends that inhabit it, the ghostly ones, and the fact that it is one of the world capitals of the UFO phenomenon. Today we return there with a story that happened very recently to one of our subscribers. Pay close attention then, if you are listening while on the road. So, are you ready? There is no turning back now. You are already listening to Tales of the Night. Good evening, Uriel. For the past 3 years I have been living in Tijuana, because I am studying at the Autonomous University of Baja California. Those of us from around here know that La Rumorosa is no ordinary road. It is heavy, it is treacherous, and when it gets cold, it becomes something even worse. This happened to me in February of last year. That weekend I had gone to visit my mom in Mexicali. Nothing out of the ordinary. Eating at home, helping her with a few things, seeing my cousins. Sunday afternoon I would head back to Tijuana as usual, because Monday I had early classes. There were already warnings that snow was going to fall up there, in the settlement. It is not something common, but when it happens, they close the road because it gets very slippery. I left a little late, and as I was heading up I began to see patches of sleet on the shoulders. It was not snowing yet. But it was already cold enough that you had to drive carefully out of fear that the road could freeze at any moment. When I reached the toll booth at the edge of the settlement, they were just letting the last few cars through. There was only one worker there. If you're heading down, take it easy, because most likely they will close it for a while. I told him yes, I would be careful, and continued on. If I am always careful on that road, imagine how cautious I was under those conditions. Past the toll booth, everything changes. The descent toward Mexicali is long, with tight curves and stretches where if you make a mistake there is not much margin for error. It was almost nighttime and the road was emptier than usual. I could not see any other cars coming down with me. I was going very slowly, winding through those mountains full of rocks and very deep ravines. About halfway down the descent I saw a car stopped at a lookout point, one of those pull-offs where people stop to see the lights of the valley. Its hazard lights were on. I slowed down because I thought maybe they needed help, but there was no one around. I kept going down. About a kilometer later I saw something. A woman walking alongside the road. There are no sidewalks there, no space to walk, no streetlights. It is nothing but hillside, rocks and ravines. Seeing someone walking there at night in the cold, with snow almost falling, is not normal. I slowed down, pulled over as far as I could and rolled down my window. "Everything okay?" The woman approached slowly. She looked normal. Young, no more than 30 years old, wearing a dark jacket with her hair down. She did not seem hurt or distressed. I don't like picking up strangers, but it did not seem right to leave her there either, especially not after I had been the one to offer the ride. So I unlocked the door. She sat down in the passenger seat. The moment she closed the door, I felt how cold she was. I could actually feel the drop in temperature. I had the air running because the windows were fogging up, but the inside of the car grew much colder. I thought she must have been freezing, and that had I not offered her a ride, she would not have made it much further down. I tried to make conversation so it would not feel awkward, so she would feel at ease. "It is rough up here, isn't it? I think they already closed it. I am pretty sure I was the last one through." She did not respond. She stared straight ahead, very upright, very still. Then after a few seconds she said, You are already on your way to Alma. I glanced at her for a moment. What? On my way to what? She is already waiting for you. Alma. I felt something very strange in my stomach. I understood she was not referring to something, but to someone. Alma is my mother's name. It is not a very common name, is it? There was nothing in my car that showed it anywhere. I was not carrying anything that said it. But in my nervousness, I tried to sound normal. I am going to Mexicali, I told her. She kept staring straight ahead, and without looking at me said, She is already waiting for you, on Callejón Puebla. At that point, I said nothing. I could not. My mother lives in the Pueblo Nuevo neighborhood. Her house is on Callejón Puebla. It is by no means a large or well-known street. It is not something someone would just guess. I kept driving. I could feel my hands sweating even though the car was freezing. I drove a little faster than I should have. All I wanted was to reach the flat section and find other people around. I felt utterly alone with her out there, in the vastness of La Rumorosa. Before the descent was over, in a stretch where there is nothing but rocks and brush, she said, You can let me out here. There was nothing there. No sign of anyone. No marked path. Are you sure? I said by reflex, even though all I wanted was for her to leave. Yes. Someone is waiting for me here. I pulled over. She opened the door. The cold air rushed in. I watched her walk slowly toward the rocks. She never looked back. She just walked until she was swallowed by the darkness of the hillside. It was fully night by then. I closed the door and drove off. That was when I started struggling to breathe. I felt like I could not get any air in, like I was hyperventilating. My chest hurt. I came down onto the desert, toward the salt lagoon. And before I had fully crossed it, I had to stop in the middle of that dark, straight road. There was nothing to see in any direction. I got out and vomited by the side of the car. I do not know how long I stood there trying to calm myself down. When I went to open the passenger door to sit down, that was when I noticed the seat was covered in dirt. Damp, dark soil, as if someone had come in with their shoes caked in mud. But it was on the seat itself, and I had not seen the woman looking dirty at all. And there was a very strong smell. I do not know how to describe it. It was not just wet earth. It was something heavier. I tried to clean it with a sweatshirt I had in the back, but the smell would not go away. I started the car and drove straight to my mother's house. When I arrived, I said nothing to her. I just wanted to see her, to hug her. She opened the door for me as always. She asked if I had eaten yet, and I said no. She said let's go out quickly and get something. I did not want to, but she insisted. I did not want to drive again, did not want to get back in the car. I wanted to stay inside, in my safe place. But in the end, I agreed. When she got in the car, she went quiet for a few seconds. Then she said, What is that smell in here? It smells horrible, like something dead. I did not answer. I could not. To this day, I have not told anyone this story, which is why this account is anonymous, because I have not shared it with anyone until now, for the very first time. No one knows why. I have not gone down La Rumorosa at night since. Hello, community. I would like to share something that happened to me about a year ago. I am an out-of-town student in Mérida, Yucatan. So many of the local legends I have only just been learning about. One day I went with my boyfriend to a cenote called Nocac, which is relatively close to Mérida, in the direction of Ciudad Caucel. We spent the day there, and by the afternoon, as it began to grow dark, we set off on the way back on his motorcycle. As we passed through the town of Chauman, there is an abandoned hacienda on one side of the road. You can see it on Google Maps. It appears as Hacienda Cocay. It is a large, old place, surrounded by nothing but vegetation, by jungle. As we were passing alongside it, I caught a glimpse of something out of the corner of my eye. At first I thought it was a tree or a poorly placed log, but no, it was something more. It was a tall figure, a color somewhere between brown and yellowish, like dry straw. Its skin, or what appeared to be its skin, had a strange texture, as if it were wood or bark. It was crouched down as if squatting, and as I watched, it began to slowly straighten up. It was a slow, heavy movement, as if it took great effort to stand upright. At that moment, I realized it was much taller than a person should be. Much taller. I cannot say exactly how tall, but it was definitely nothing normal standing there. I only watched for a few seconds before we lost sight of it, and my boyfriend did not see it. He was focused on the road. When I told him what I had just seen, he decided to stop the motorcycle a few meters ahead. We looked toward the hacienda. It was growing dark and you could barely make anything out. Only shadows and brush. He also got a bad feeling and we decided to leave. That night, I told my parents what I had seen. It is not the first time in my family that we have talked about strange things, so they believe me. But no one knew exactly what it could have been. Sometime later, over an after-dinner conversation, the topic came up with a friend of my father's who has lived in Yucatan for many years. He sat quietly thinking when I described what I had seen. The next day, he sent my father a message. He had already looked into it. It turns out that in Mayan mythology there is a being called the Chehuknik, described as a guardian of the forest. A tall creature covered in something resembling bark, which tends to appear near jungles, cenotes, and old haciendas. Some versions say it feeds on human flesh. I knew nothing about any of that. I had no idea that something with that description even existed. Believe me when I say that none of us can explain how I could have seen a being whose existence I was completely unaware of. They all got goosebumps from this experience, because they trust me, because they know what I saw was real. My name is Lupita. I am from Chihuahua, Chihuahua, and I am a huge fan of Tales of the Night, of course. Even though I have always enjoyed ghost stories, I never thought I would end up telling one like this. This happened when I went to live with my then boyfriend in a town known for its violence. One of those places where there is always a new crime report, and where out of fear and danger, the road feels longer than it actually is. I worked in the city, and to get home I had to drive along a federal highway with no streetlights. Just darkness, and a few scattered houses in the distance. One November night I left late. I remember the air was already very cold, not windy, but that dry cold that seeps through your clothes. I was driving calmly, with the music low, thinking of nothing but getting home. Before entering the town, there is a curve, not a very tight one, but it is alone out there, with nothing around it but brush and darkness. As I began to take it, the radio started filling with interference. First it was a faint noise, like when you lose the signal. Then it grew louder, a constant static. I thought it was normal for that area, and then I felt the first impact, against the back of my seat. It was not hard, but it was clear, like someone had kicked from behind. My hands tensed. Almost by instinct, I tilted the rearview mirror with my hand. I did not want to look back directly. I do not know why I did that. I just did not want to look. I felt like something very bad was about to happen. The car started feeling strange. I could not explain how. The cold inside intensified even though I had not touched anything. I tried to stay calm. I kept trying to stay calm. And then out of the corner of my eye I saw movement. An arm, I swear. An arm reaching toward me from the back seat. I did not see anything else. Just the arm. Just the arm extending as if trying to reach me. I could not scream. I did not know how to react. I felt another impact against the seat, and that is when I accelerated. I did not look back. I did not brake. I just accelerated. I remember I started praying out loud, telling myself I was not going to get frightened, that I was not going to provoke anything, that I was not afraid. But I was. Of course I was. I was terrified inside. When I finally saw the first lights of the town, I did not even feel relief. I felt like whatever it was still there. I arrived, pulled into the property, put the car in park, and got out without even turning it off properly. I just ran to the door. When I looked back, my dog was barking at the car. Not at me, the way he always does when I arrive. He was barking at the car, with his fur standing completely on end. When my boyfriend arrived, I told him everything. He did not laugh or tell me I was overreacting. He went quiet, took some holy water and went out to the car. When he came back, he told me the vehicle was off with all the windows down. But I had not lowered the windows, and I truly do not think I had turned the car off when I got out either. That night I barely slept. My then boyfriend's mother told me that whenever I had to pass that curve again, I should open the window, throw some holy water out, and ask for peace for whatever was there. I did it. It was not easy, but I did. Sometime later, my boyfriend told me something he had not told me that night, so as not to upset me further. When he left for work at 4 in the morning, just before walking away, he turned and saw someone sitting in the back seat of my car. He thought he was imagining things, so he called a cousin who lived nearby to come and check. When the cousin arrived, there was no one there. The car was locked with the alarm set. Sometime later, I was told that there are always many accidents at that curve. I do not know whether there are accidents because things appear there, or whether things appear because of the accidents, but both facts I can confirm as real. I only know that I saw that arm. I am completely sure of what I saw. And I no longer like to drive past that place at night, even though I have to. I was encouraged to send this in because, even though a few years have passed, I still cannot drive through that road at night without feeling unsettled. I was born in Querétaro, but I studied university in León. They are relatively close, so from time to time I would go back on weekends to see my family and friends. I almost always stayed with my dad. He lives in a house near the Cerro de las Campanas. I liked staying there because it is centrally located and my friends could easily pick me up when we went out. But that time I did everything wrong. I decided to go to Querétaro without giving him enough notice, thinking he would be home as usual. I left León after classes and drove without any trouble. It was already night when I arrived, and I even met up with a friend, and we went to a cafe until they kicked us out because they were closing. I drove off quite happily toward my dad's house. When I parked and called him, he did not answer. Then he wrote to me. He was out of town for work and would not be back until Sunday. He had not left me a key because, as far as he knew, I was not going to come that weekend. That was when it hit me. My only option was to go and stay at my mother's house. She lives near Chichimequillas, in a large house in the countryside with her new husband. It is not exactly a ranch, but it is quite remote out there. To get there, you have to take the highway and then a stretch where there is almost no light and no houses, about 40 minutes from the city. It was almost midnight. I was not thrilled about the idea, but I had no other choice. So I left. I drove out of the area I was in, and slowly the city was left behind. After a few minutes on the highway, there were almost no other cars and very little light. Then I finally noticed headlights behind me. I did not pay much attention at first. I thought it must be someone heading to a nearby community. But then I realized the car had gotten very close. It was following too near behind me. It made me uncomfortable, but what really started to frighten me was that it made no attempt to pass. No matter how much I slowed down, and the road has long straight stretches where passing would have been perfectly easy. Instead of overtaking, if I slowed down, so did it. In the rearview mirror I could tell it was a single person. At first I thought it might be someone who had been drinking, or someone who did not know how to drive, but several kilometers went by and it was exactly the same. By that point there was almost nothing around. Just dark fields, not a single store, not a gas station, not another car. I felt my shoulders begin to tense. I was checking the rearview mirror every few seconds. I could not make out who was driving, just the high beams blinding me. What I decided was that I was not going to go directly to my mother's house. I did not want that person to know where she lived. So when I saw a turnoff onto a side road, I took it. I thought it would settle things. I would see if the car continued straight. But when I turned, so did it. There were no coincidences left, and now I had put myself in a worse spot. All I could hope was that this road did not lead to a dead end. Fortunately, it did not. I reached a somewhat lit area and started taking turn after turn. I had no idea where I was going, but I preferred getting a little lost over leading this person back to the house. The only thing on my mind was to keep moving. At every intersection I turned, and the car was always behind me, always at the same distance. If I slowed down, so did it. If I sped up, so did it. I felt my heart pounding hard. I thought about calling my mother, but I did not know where my phone was, and I did not want to take my eyes off the road to look for it. Then, when I made it back to the highway, I decided to turn back toward the city. I would rather risk the road to Querétaro than lead this person to the house. The car turned back as well. That is when I panicked, completely, and when I saw a turnoff onto another side road, I did something very reckless. I cut across from the fast lane at the very last second to take it, without braking, at full speed. I almost lost control. I felt like two wheels lifted off the ground through that curve. I heard the other car brake hard, and when I looked in the rearview mirror, it finally kept going straight. It had not made the exit. Whether it could not or chose not to, I could not tell. I did not wait around to find out. I accelerated. I made my way back to the highway through side streets and took several detours before daring to get back on the right route. It took me a long time to reach my mother's house, because I kept changing paths every time I saw headlights in the distance, no longer sure whether it was the same car or not. When I finally reached the gate, I called for them to open it. It was only a matter of seconds, but I swear it felt like an eternity, until I was finally able to pull inside. I never found out who was behind me or what they wanted. Nothing like that has ever happened to me again, but it left a trauma that I think I will carry for a long time. Thank you for listening to my story. Even though there is nothing paranormal about it, it is the most terrifying thing that has ever happened to me.